Hello everyone. I wanted to do this video and talk about selfishness and being selfish and turning it and changing it and transforming it into self-fullness. I think when we use the word selfishness or being selfish, it can come with these really negative connotations. And there's this guilt that comes with the word selfishness. And, you're being selfish, you're looking after yourself, or you're not thinking about anyone else, you're just thinking about yourself, you're being selfish. And I learned from a mentor a really great lesson, and she said, you need to replace selfishness with self-fullness. And if you think about it, self-fullness is about giving yourself what you need to feel full, to feel satisfied, and then from there, ultimately feel better. If we perceive that being selfish, meaning looking after yourself and doing what's necessary for you, is bad, then we're never really going to do it. We don't move closer towards pain. We step away from it. We try and avoid it, right? And so if we're perceiving that being selfish is a bad thing, and if we don't replace it with self-fullness, then more times than not, you're not going to do what is ultimately going to be good for you, even though it feels bad. And this kind of ties into people pleasing, that idea that you have to put everyone else in front of yourself. You have to say yes to everyone or everything. And it kind of feels like this never ending cycle of like, man, how do I even choose me? I've seen so many members who go through our mentorship 3.0 go through this change, and it's quite a painful experience because they've only known themselves to be one way, the way in which that they're always kind to everyone. They always put themselves last. They always, give everybody else a chocolate muffin but themselves. And if they do give themselves a chocolate muffin, it's the one that's at the end, which is all crumply and ugly. And, the conversation around it needs to change ultimately. A lot of people who experience chronic fatigue syndrome have come from a place of people pleasing, come from a place of this perfection thinking that everything has to be perfect, but you have to be perfect, the individual, which, if you think about it, is extremely exhausting after a while. And the fastest way to end this is twofold. It's one, to look a little bit deeper within yourself and ask yourself, well, where is that people-pleasing tendency coming from? Why is it there? What am I believing about myself and others for me to continue behaving this way? And if you think about it, people-pleasing usually is a form of trying to be liked, trying to not get anyone in trouble, not get yourself in trouble, follow the rules, and basically keep everything polite and kind and on the surface level fine. The problem with people-pleasing is there's this self-sacrifice component where, you're just constantly self-sacrificing yourself. You're saying yes when you really want to say no, right? You're pretending everything's fine when it's really, really not. And it's a real sure way to stay stuck and miserable in this ever cycle of non-self-care, if you would like to say it like that. So yeah, we want to look below the surface. Where is that coming from? Why am I behaving this way? And that's the deeper component where you would self-explore, you would journal out, why am I trying to please this person? What am I trying to get? In fact, someone said to me recently that being that person who's people-pleasing is actually really mean because it's a form of manipulation. So if you're the people pleaser in this instance and you're trying to please somebody, you're actually trying to get something. So it's a form of manipulation. And it's a nice way of being manipulated, but it's still not that helpful. And so the question is, what are you trying to get from being nice or overly nice or trying to people please all the time? Now, that doesn't mean you have to be an asshole. It doesn't mean you have to be rude or mean. It just means that you know what's true and what's right for you, and you honor that versus not speaking that out loud at all and pretending that you basically aren't important, right? Or you don't exist, which isn't useful at all. The second helpful tool, which is a much faster way, is just to reframe selfishness and to reframe it that it's not selfishness, it's self-fullness. And when you're self-full, then that cup overflows into other people too. And you can, you're kinder, you're more grounded, you're more relaxed, and you're more empowered, and you actually teach empowerment to others too by just being you. And that's a pretty cool way to do it. We have obviously a lot of mums in our Mentorship 3.0, some single, some married, but it's very difficult to balance, being a mother with recovery. And there's a real common complaint is like, how do I put myself first when I've got 2 kids or 1 kid or when I'm a single parent? And my response to that is sometimes you can't put yourself first, but you can put yourself equal. And we've had so many mums recover from chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia and other chronic illnesses that they did exactly that they put themselves equal. Now, what does that look like on a fundamental level? Well, it might look like, making sure that there's time for you in each day, even if it's just 5 minutes at a time. If they're old enough, the kids, you could say to the kid, hey, mummy has to go and do an appointment with herself and she'll be back in 15 minutes and I'll come back out and play with you then. It might be eating the food at the same time, or, finding out ways on where you can use your time better or set up boundaries better so you can use your time more usefully for yourself and get some reprieve basically and some self-fullness in your day as well. Pretty important. And so if we can flip the script and basically say, hey, it's okay. Nothing wrong with being selfish, particularly if it's for those purposes of self-care. In fact, self-care really is a prerequisite, should be a prerequisite, not a post-requisite after you've been an amazing mother or after you've done all these X, Y, Zs. It's more a prerequisite for being who you are and going through what you're going through. And if we can look at self-care from that place of really just going, this is a prerequisite and I'm going to embed it in my day, whether that's having a slow morning, whether that's meditating, journaling, simply just having your favorite tea or herbal tea on your deck can be just one of those moments where you breathe and you just take in the moment rather than rushing to the next thing and the next thing and just basically ticking all the boxes. When we tick the boxes, we become robotic and it doesn't feel that good. And so maybe even finding ways where it's that spontaneity, self-fullness that comes to you. So it could be your favorite song. It could be turning the music up while you're in the kitchen. It could just be giving yourself permission to just be. Part of your process, part of recovery is you're not going to have perfect days every day. Some days are going to be shit, so to speak. And so giving yourself permission just to block out that day and go, I'm just going to give myself a day to not try, to not do, to not overthink, just to be in this where I'm at right now. So it's almost this permission to allow. And I think when we give ourselves permission to allow what is, it just drops away that perfectionistic thinking. It drops away that inner critic that says that self-care or being self-full, thinking about yourself is a bad thing. It just drops that immediately when you just allow yourself to be. And if you can speak from that place of being, usually it's extremely understood by other people in the sense of if someone said, hey, I want you to do this, and you were just being and all in your being, you knew that you didn't want to do that. You could say, hey, just right now, I've just checked in with myself, and right now it's just a no, because that's just how it feels right now for me. Notice how much better that feels just to be able to express it in that way versus saying, oh, I really want to, but I'm not sure. But then, I feel bad if I don't go, but, I don't want you to think bad of me. And you get into this real non-useful conversation that just goes around in circles. But wouldn't it be great just to be able to be where you're at and allow where you're at and just say, hey, I've checked in with me right now. And right now, it's a no for me. But I'll let you know if it changes. Oh, that was a lot stronger, wasn't it? And so, yeah, this is just a short little reminder to remember self-care is a prerequisite. Replace the word selfishness with self-fullness. And see if you can come from that place of allowance. And if you are a chronic people pleaser, just check in with yourself before you say yes. Why am I saying yes? For what purpose am I saying yes for? For what purpose am I over committing or being over the top in giving and people pleasing? For what purpose? And you'll find some really interesting answers that will uncover and unblock your next steps. because if you become aware of it, as my dad would say, awareness is the gold. That's what you're looking for. If you become aware of it, then you can change it, and you can just check in with yourself. You know, you don't have to overcomplicate it. You don't have to over communicate it. You simply just state, hey, I'd love to. Thanks for the offer, but I've just checked in with myself and my body and my where I'm at, and right now it's a no for me. And like I said before, when you come from that relaxed place, people usually respect it. They're like, oh, okay, I understand. Now, of course, there's going to be some humans in the world that won't agree with you or won't want that for you. And if they rebel against that, you kind of are given an answer of, well, do you want to participate in that kind of friendship and relationship and connection anyway? How useful is it? It sounds like a not a relationship, but a relationship, meaning that there's expectations put upon each other. And if you don't meet those expectations every time, then it's a problem. And that in itself is a problem too. But if we zoom out, the key takeaway here is really replace selfishness with self-fullness. Self-care is a prerequisite. And if you are a mum or a parent, and you've got other people in your life, you don't necessarily have to put yourself first, but you can certainly put yourself equal. And you might want to jot down some things that would be really useful and how that would look like on a day-to-day basis of putting yourself equal. Maybe it's time for you in the morning and then time for the kids in the middle of the day. Or maybe it's a swap. Maybe it's one credit spent there, one credit spent with you, one credit spent there, one credit spent with you. And you can build that throughout your entire day. I hope this was really, really helpful and hopefully insightful. I'd love you to comment below. What was your takeaway for you? Did anything land for you? What was your takeaway in the sense of, this overall conversation around self-fullness, people-pleasing, and feeling like you have to overcompensate all the time? What would life be like if you didn't have to prove anything?